බෝතල් නම් භාගයයි මාසයකට වඩා රිදි සුවතයි.
Tonight, a brighter June. Sri Lanka's vaccination rollout to be boosted in June with the arrival of 2 million more Sinopharm doses as the government refutes pricing allegations. Be wary. Experts warn that pre-work PCR testing could be complicated by false positive tests.
We would like to request, especially the employers, not to insist on this pre-duty reporting PCR.
Adequate coverage. Maritime experts say Sri Lanka needs legal revisions to effectively deal with marine disasters. Growth predictions. Sri Lanka's sovereign rating confirmed at CCC+, while warnings of fiscal deficit and exchange pressure looms. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 1st of June, 2000.
හඳුන්වා දෙන නව ක්‍රියා ෂැම්පූ තුන්ගුණයක් ක්‍රියාකාරී ඇන්ටි ඩෑන්ඩ්‍රෆ් තාක්ෂණයෙන් ඉසේ සම පෝෂණය කර ඉසුරු ඉවත් කරමින් නැවත ඇතිවීම වළකයි. නව ක්‍රියා ෂැම්පූ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanaka. Now, a further 1 million doses of China's Sinopharm vaccine are set to arrive on Sunday, with another million due later in the month, injecting a sense of optimism in the country's vaccine rollout. With that, State Minister for Production, Supply, Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, urged the public to be patient, as the government has no intention of leaving anyone out. Further, following claims of Sinopharm vaccine being purchased by the government at higher than normal prices, the Cabinet media briefing today took up the issue, showing that Sri Lanka's $15 price tag remains much lower than some other countries. In the meantime, the World Health Organization today gave emergency use approval for another China-produced vaccine, Sinovac.
Optimism is high within the government's national vaccination program for the month of June, with major vaccine deliveries expected that will finally allow the program to shift gear and expand. A total of 2 million Sinopharm vaccines ordered by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation are due in the island this month, with the first million expected on Sunday. With this in mind, State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, urged the public not to fret over their vaccinations, as a little more patience will eventually pay off as the program expands its reach. In addition, the State Minister also touched on social media claims of people being forced to sign an indemnity document before receiving a single dose of the Sputnik vaccine.
එම රබර් මුද්‍රාවේ තියෙන්නේ ස්පුට්නික් V1 පළවෙනි මාත්‍රාව පමණක් උව ලබා ගැනීමට කැමැති කියන කාරණේ. ඇත්තටම රුසියානු ස්පුට්නික් සමාගම ආරම්භයේදී එන්නත් මාත්‍රා දෙකක් හැටියට තමයි ඔවුන්ගේ ස්පුට්නික් V කියන එන්නත හඳුන්වලා දුන්නේ. වර්ග දෙකක එන්නත් ස්පුට්නික් V කියන්නේ. එතකොට පර්යේෂණ ඉදිරියට යනකොට රුසියානුවේ නිෂ්පාදන ගැමිලියා ආයතනය ඇත්තටම දැන් ඔවුන්ගේ පර්යේෂකයන් කියනවා මේ එන්නත් මාත්‍රා දෙකෙන් පළවෙනි මාත්‍රාව උව පමණක් ලබා දීම සෑහීමකටපත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා උන්ට පර්යේෂණ වාර්තා තියෙනවා කියලා. මේ වෙනකොට රුසියානු නිෂ්පාදන ආයතනයේ ස්පුට්නික් එන්නතේ මාත්‍රා දෙකෙන් පළවෙනි මාත්‍රාව පමණක් ස්පුට්නික් ලයිට් හැටියට හඳුන්වමින් වෙළඳපොළට නිකුත් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් අනාගතයේදී මෙම නිෂ්පාදන සමාගම මේ පර්යේෂකයන් ඉඩක් තියෙනවා ස්පුට්නික් මාත්‍රා දෙකම ලබා ගත යුතු නැහැ පළවෙනි මාත්‍රාව පමණක් සෑහීමකටපත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා උන්ගේ නිර්දේශයක් ලබා දෙන්න. ඒ පිළිබඳව අපිට මේ වෙනකොටත් යම් ආකාරයකට එම නිෂ්පාදන ආයතනය යම් දැනුම් දීම කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා තමයි අපි කල් වෙලා ඇතිව ජනතාවට මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් දැනුවත් කරන්න ඕන නිසා ඔවුන්ගේ අවසරය අවශ්‍ය නිසා තමයි අපි මේ ආකාරයේ පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් කරන්නේ. රුසියානු නිෂ්පාදන ආයතනය අපිට දැනුම් දුන්නොත් අප තීරණය කරනවා ඉදිරියේදී ඒක එන්නතකින් පමණක් සෑහීමකටපත් වෙන්න. දැනට එහෙම තීරණයක් අරගෙන නැහැ. අප මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ස්පුට්නික් එන්නත පිළිබඳව තොරතුරු ලබා ගන්න නිර්දේශ ලබා ගන්න විශේෂ තාක්ෂණික කමිටුවක් පත් කරා. උන්ගේ නිර්දේශ මත තමයි අප කටයුතු කරන්නේ.
Meanwhile, the weekly cabinet meeting saw the issue of Sinopharm vaccines being brought up on the back of claims of the government paying over international market prices to the Chinese manufacturer. The claims prompted the Chinese embassy in Colombo to issue a clarification on social media that then led to further claims by opposition groups as proof of Sri Lankan subservience to the Chinese government.
විශේෂයෙන්ම නිෂ්පාදනය කරන්නේ චීනය නිසා ඔවුන්ට අයිතියක් තියෙනවා ඒ සම්බන්ධව කතා කරන්න. ඔවුන් රාජතාන්ත්‍රික මට්ටමින් දැනුම් දෙන අතරතුරේ ඔවුන්ගේ ප්‍රකාශය එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔවුන්ව ඉතාමත්ම අපහසුතාවයකට පත් වෙන නිසා ඔවුන් ඒ ආකාරයෙන් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන එක ආයතනයකින් එක විදිහකට දෙන එකක් නෙමෙයි. ඒ සම්බන්ධව කරන ප්‍රසම්පාදන ක්‍රියාවලියත් එක්ක ඔවුන් සමග සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඇති වෙන දේවල්.
මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට ලංකා ආණ්ඩුවට උත්තරයක් දෙන්න බෑ. උත්තරයක් දිය හැකි එකම තැන චීන ආණ්ඩුව පමණයි. චීන ආණ්ඩුව වෙනුවෙන් ලංකාවේ ඉන්න නියෝජිතයා තමයි චීන තානාපතිතුමා. මොකද චීනයේ ලංකාවට දුන්න මිල ඩොලර් 15ද නැත්නම් ඊට අඩු මිලකට දීලා ලංකාවේ දූෂණයක් කරා වැඩි මිලක් දක්වලා තියෙනවද? බංගලිදේශයට ඇත්තටම දෙන්නේ කීයටද? මේ කතාව ඇත්තද බොරුද කියලා ලංකාවේ ආණ්ඩුවට ප්‍රකාශයක් කරන්න බෑ. මාලදිවයිනේ ලංකාවට උඹල කඩ ඩොලර් 15ට දීලා බංගලිදේශයට ඩොලර් 10ට දෙනවායි කියලා කවුරු හරි කිව්වොත් ඒක ඇත්තද නැත්තද කියන්න පුළුවන් මාලදිවයිනේ තානාපති කාර්යාලයට විතරමයි. ඒ වගේම සයිනෝෆාර්ම එන්නත ආජෙන්ටිනාව මිලදී අරන් තියෙන ඩොලර් 40කට, හංගේරියාව මිලදී අරන් තියෙන ඩොලර් 36කට. දැන් ඔබට අපි මිල ගණන් පෙන්නුවා. බංගලිදේශයේ ඩොලර් 10කට දුන්නා කියන්නේ බොරුවක් කියලා චීන ආණ්ඩුව ට්විටර් පණිවිඩයකින් ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කළා තියෙනවා. දෙවෙනුව අපි පෙන්නුවා ලෝකයේ අන් රටවල අරන් තියෙන්නේ අපි ගත්ත මිලට වඩා දෙගුණයකටත් වඩා වැඩි මිලවල්.
Meanwhile, WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom says that the coronavirus has exposed serious inequities and divisions in the global system.
At present, pathogens have greater power than WHO. They are emerging more frequently in a planet out of balance. They exploit our interconnectedness and expose our inequities and divisions.
He added that while governments remain responsible for their citizens, states too must bear some responsibility for each other in the backdrop of the current vaccine supply crisis.
The safety of the world's people cannot rely solely on the goodwill of governments. Every government is responsible for and accountable to its own people. But member states can only truly keep their own people safe if they are accountable to each other at the global level.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම.
Health authorities, meanwhile, are urging employers to do away with pre-work PCR tests for employees. The plea comes amid confusion of COVID patients who leave treatment centres testing positive for the virus once more. The explanation is that the post-treatment PCR test would pick up dead remnants of the virus.
With there being incidents reported where patients who leave treatment centres testing COVID positive once more after a few days, Deputy Director General of Education, Training and Research at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hemantha Herath, today sought to clear up the matter.
This can happen when a person is detected to have COVID-19 through PCR that indicates that the samples obtained from the particular person contains genetic material of the virus. So we label them as COVID positive, and those who are symptomatic will be treated at respective hospitals, and those who are not symptomatic will be treated at intermediate care centers, and they will be released without doing any PCRs after 10 days, and they will be asked to stay at home for another 4 days as a safety measure. And the basis for such guideline is that once a person is detected to have COVID-19 virus, after 5-6 days later, the virus level will go down, especially if the person is asymptomatic. That means his general immunity level is good, and therefore it is very unlikely that this person will be spreading the disease anymore. And after 10 or 15 days, there will be no live viruses in the bodies of such people. However, if you do a PCR later, the PCR can become positive because of the presence of dead virus or viral material or genetic material within the body or within the samples that we are taking. So finally, all the measures that we need to take for a COVID positive patient will need to be applied to a person of this nature who is not a COVID positive patient. So therefore, we would like to request, especially the employers, not to insist on this pre-duty reporting PCR, which is sometimes they have been asking, because if you become positive after undergoing all the treatment and other measures that need to control the disease in respect of this person will have to be followed once again for these patients if they are not properly identified as previously infected person.
Meanwhile, the first dedicated COVID-19 treatment centre for members of the Buddhist clergy was unveiled in Kandy today. The facility comprises of 50 beds and a fully equipped intensive care unit. The necessary facilities for the Buddhist clergy will be provided by the Temple of the Sacred Tooth Relic in Kandy. In the meantime, the World Health Organization has introduced a new set of labels to identify the COVID variants identified at present, including the 4 variants of concern. The labeling system adopts the Greek alphabet to identify various strands. As per the new system, the UK variant B117 is labelled Alpha, the South African variant B1351 is Beta, the Brazilian variant P1 is Gamma, and the Indian variant B16172 is Delta. These labels, however, do not replace existing scientific names. The measure is taken to avoid discrimination by calling variants by the places of origin and to simplify public communications. During the course of yesterday, 2,912 infections were detected from the island. That includes 30 foreign arrivals as well as 2,882 infections detected from all the districts. Colombo confirmed the highest number, which is 490, while Gampaha and Kandy recorded 322 and 261 new cases respectively. In addition, 150 infections came from Batticaloa, 149 from Jaffna, 145 from Kurunegala, 126 from Matale, 124 from Anuradhapura and 111 from Trincomalee. The remaining 744 infections were confirmed across 15 other districts. In the meantime, the WHO chief called for an expeditious launch of global negotiations to agree on an international treaty on pandemic preparedness and response.
The one recommendation that I believe will do most to strengthen both WHO and global health security is the recommendation of a treaty on pandemic preparedness and response. That could also improve, as I said earlier, the relationship between member states and fosters cooperation. This is an idea whose time has come. We need a generational commitment that outlives budgetary cycles, election cycles, and media cycles, that creates an overarching framework for connecting the political, financial, and technical mechanisms needed for strengthening global health security.
The WHO Director General also highlighted the importance of sustainable financing to maintain its pandemic response.
Even in the midst of this pandemic, we face a serious challenge to maintain WHO's response to COVID-19 at its current level. We cannot pay people with praise, and WHO cannot grow stronger without sustainable financing.
In the meantime, the Director General of Health Services confirmed 43 COVID-19 related deaths yesterday. The Department of Government Information confirmed that 4 of them have occurred yesterday, while the remaining had occurred between the 20th and the 30th of May. COVID pneumonia was the cause of death in a majority of fatalities. Meanwhile, with the detection of 2,845 new COVID-19 infections during the day, the total number of active cases in the island is currently at 34,354. Sri Lanka also saw a significant number of recoveries today as well. 1,631 patients in total were confirmed to have recovered from the virus, taking the overall tally to 153,371.
The government today sealed all the licensed liquor stores in the country, effective until travel restrictions are lifted. The restrictions are put in place to curb the spread of the virus. But the number of daily arrests over quarantine law violations keep creeping up. The number crossed 1,000 for the first time since the pandemic broke out in the island in March of last year.
Despite strict island-wide travel restrictions being in effect, Colombo witnessed a high influx of vehicles today as well, with its entry points even jammed.
පොලිසියට මේ පොලිසිය නිලධාරීන් නිකුත් කරන මේ උපදෙස් මේ තියෙන්නේ. ඔයාට මේක අරගෙන යන්න බෑ. පැහැදිලිද ඔයාට මේක ලැබුණේ කොහෙන්ද කියලා මම පරීක්ෂණයක් කරනවා ඊට පස්සේ.
The heavy traffic, however, was not just limited to Colombo. Commenting on incidents of traffic congestion, police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana yet again promised a strict legal action against those who fail to comply with quarantine laws, including heads of institutions.
Yesterday, it has been observed that some persons had used fake documents in respect of their employment. So therefore, today it is checked by the police and randomly the documents are collected electronically and special teams have been deployed to check whether that particular employee's service is essential to that particular organization, and we are making physical visits to such institution to check that particular issue. If any head of the organization or supervisor has issued a document irrelevant to his job, so he has prepared a forged document, accordingly that particular person is dealt with the law. In addition to that, the provisions of the Quarantine and Prevention of Diseases Ordinance.
In such a backdrop, Secretary to the Ministry of Public Services, Provincial Councils and Local Government, J.J. Ratnasiri, renewed requests from head of institutions to call minimum required staff for duty. Meanwhile, 5 persons in the area of Arsadi in Jaffna were arrested last night for organising a birthday party in violation of quarantine laws. Over the past week, the number of daily arrests made for quarantine law violations have been creeping up. So much so, the number of arrests made yesterday breached 1,000 for the first time since the pandemic's inception.
Yesterday, 1,047 suspects have been arrested in connection with the offences of quarantine rules and regulations within a period of 24 hours ending at 6 o'clock this morning. Total number of 19,102 persons have been arrested since the 30th of October 2022 date. 23,000 police officers have been deployed to roads in order to check the persons who are moving on roads.
Police continued to monitor the situation on roads today as well. Meanwhile, in a ramp-up of measures to prevent any further spread of COVID-19, the government has decided to seal all the licensed liquor stores across the country with immediate effect. The liquor stores will remain sealed until the travel restrictions are lifted on Monday the 7th and will continue to be in effect if the restrictions are extended. The government also decided to close all the dedicated economic centres today and tomorrow. They were kept open for wholesale trade for the past couple of days, during which there wasn't much in way of social distancing. Unaware of the move, however, a group of traders arrived at the Manning Market complex in Paliagoda today. Considering their grievance, the police allowed them to retrieve their goods from the complex and told them that there is no issue in them selling the produce via door-to-door mobile service. Traders, however, later had their produce on sale outside the market premises. In the meantime, Minister of Trade Dr. Bandula Gunawardena paid a visit to the economic centre in Meegoda yesterday. Expressing views to media, the minister stated that economic centres will be kept open for wholesale trade on Thursday and Friday. He added that upon instructions of the President, fruits which remain unsold will be purchased by the government from the farmers. He also inspected the wholesale shops in Peta this morning. Despite the imposition of travel restrictions, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has decided to keep the wholesale outlets at 4th and 5th Cross Streets in Peta open. The wholesale shops located there will not be open for the general public, but for the mobile vendors. Meanwhile, the government will start the distribution of the 5,000 rupee allowance tomorrow, provided for Samurdhi recipients, low-income earners and those who lost their income due to the pandemic.
මේ රුපියල් 5000 දීමනාව ලබා දීමේදී ජනතාව ඒකරාශී කරලා එක තැනකට දෙන්න. හැබැයි මේ අවස්ථාවේ අපිට ඒ කටයුත්ත කරන්න බෑ. එහිඳ අපි නිලධාරීන්ට මේ නිදහස ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. Tamanට හැකි ඉක්මනින් මේ මුදල ලබා දෙන්න. ඒකයි මම කිව්වේ මේක දින අපිට සතියක් කහමාරක් දෙකක් අතර කාලයක් ගත වේවි.
What's more, Sri Lanka reopened its skies for business today. The island, however, will not be open for passengers from India and Vietnam. Following the reopening of the airports, a Qatar Airways flight with 53 passengers on board arrived at the Katunayake Bandaranaike International Airport from Doha at around 2:15 this morning. 9 passengers were foreigners and the rest Sri Lankans. Meanwhile, the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport saw another flight from Qatar at around 9:30 this morning. A total of 116 foreigners arrived on board the flight as part of a crew change. Reopening of airports come with a mandated 14-day quarantine for all passengers.
Claims of Chinese influence behind plans by the government to redevelop dilapidated commercial buildings in the city of Colombo were rubbished today by Cabinet spokesperson Kehile Rambukwella. He says that it was unfortunate that the opposition attempts to create a fear psychosis around every development effort of the government.
At the weekly Cabinet media briefing held this morning, Cabinet co-spokesperson Udaya Gamanpila announced that a GPS-based vessel monitoring system is to be installed on 4,200 more Sri Lankan multi-day fishing vessels through a program implemented by the International Organisation for Migration using a $5.38 million Australian dollar grant from the Home Affairs Department of Australia. The Cabinet has also approved a proposal submitted by the Minister of Urban Development and Housing to begin construction of 171 houses for estate workers in the Derana area, using funds from a 500 million rupee Indian government grant to construct 480 estate houses. In addition, the Cabinet also green-lighted a proposal submitted by the Ministry of Public Security to construct a police headquarters complex on a 14-acre property in Bellantota, Attidia. Meanwhile, at the media briefing, Cabinet co-spokesperson Udaya Gamanpila announced a host of other Cabinet decisions and also sought to reassure the public that rumours of an imminent salt shortage were untrue.
පලාලිහි පීටි යාපනය ජාත්‍යන්තර ගුවන්තොටුපළ සංවර්ධනය කිරීම සඳහා ඉන්දියාවෙන් රුපියල් මිලියන 300ක ආධාරයක් ලබා ගැනීමට ඉන්දියානු ආණ්ඩුව සමග අවබෝධතා ගිවිසුමක් අත්සන් කිරීමට සංචාරක අමාත්‍යතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කළ පත්‍රිකාවට අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයේ අනුමැතිය හිමි වුණා. ඒ වගේම දැනට නඩුවක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් පාර්ශවයන් මුදල් ගෙවා පිටපත් ලබා ගන්න ඕනි. මේ නිසා නඩුවේ සියලුම පාර්ශවකරුවන්ට නොමිලේ පිටපත බැගින් ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා අපරාධ නඩු විධාන සංග්‍රහයත් සිවිල් නඩු විධාන සංග්‍රහයත් සංශෝධනය කිරීමට අධිකරණ අමාත්‍යතුමා ඉදිරිපත් කළ යෝජනාවට අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩල අනුමැතිය හිමි වුණා. ඒ වගේම බරපතල කටකතාවක් පැතිර මේ රසායනික ද්‍රව්‍ය මුහුදට කාන්දු වීම නිසා ලුණු හිගයක් අනාගතයේ ඇතිවීමට ඉඩ තිබෙනවායි කියලා කටකතාවක් පැතිරී තිබෙනවා. ලුණු නිෂ්පාදනයේට මෙතෙක් ඒ නැවේ බලපෑමක් කෙල්ල වෙලා නැහැ. ලුණු ලේවායන් තියෙන ප්‍රදේශයට මේ නැවෙන් රසායනික ද්‍රව්‍ය කාන්දු වීමේ බලපෑමක් සිදු වෙලා නැති නිසා ලුණු හිගයක් ඇතිවීමටවත් ලුණු නිෂ්පාදනය ඇන හිටීමටවත් කිසිම හේතුවක් ඇති වෙලා නැහැ.
In the meantime, Cabinet spokesperson Kehile Rambukwella addressed claims that the government's plans to redevelop commercially viable buildings currently in a state of disrepair was somehow China-related.
මේක මං හිතන්නේ බොරු ප්‍රචාරණය කිරීමේ යාන්ත්‍රණයේ එක කොටසක් හැටියට සලකන්නට ඕනේ. මේ සම්බන්ධව ආයතනයක් පිටවලා තියෙනවා UD එකේ. ලංකාවේ පාවිච්චි වෙන්නේ නැති ඉතාමත්ම අවාසනාවන්ත ලෙස දි รา පත් වෙලා වැටිලා තියෙන ගොඩනැගිලි සනනාවක් ඒ පත්‍රිකාව හරහා ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. නැවත ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණය කරලා රටේ ඵල ප්‍රයෝජනයක් වෙන ආදායමක් ලබන ආයතන බවට පරිවර්තනය කරන්න. ඒ නිසා බොහොම පැහැදිලිව කියන්නට ඕනේ අපි දැන් ගෆූර් ගොඩනැගිල්ල ගත්තොත් කෝටි ගානක දි รา පත් වෙලා වැටිලා කඩා වැටිලා දිය වෙලා යන තත්ත්වයකට පත් වෙලා. දැන් එවැනි දේවල් ඉදිරියට අරගෙන සංවර්ධනය කරලා රටේ පෞද්ගලික අංශයයි රාජ්‍යයයි එකට එක්කාසු වෙලා ඒවා ප්‍රයෝජනයක් අරගෙන රටට මහා දැවැන්ත ආදායමක් ලබන්න යනකොට වැඩපිළිවෙලක් කරනකොට චීන කතන්දරයක් ගෙනහිල්ලා මෙහෙම කතාන්දර නිර්මාණය කිරීම මම හිතන්නේ තාමත්ම අවාසනාවන්ත තත්ත්වයක්. විපක්ෂයක භූමිකාව වරදවා තේරුම් අරන් කටයුතු කිරීමක් හැටියටයි මම දන්නේ.
In a bid to prevent any further damage to the country's already ravaged marine environment, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed Marine Environmental Protection Authority to take necessary steps to tow the chartered vessel MV Express Pearl towards deeper waters. Meanwhile, maritime law expert Dr. Dan Gunasekara says that as a result of the unreformed maritime legal provisions, Sri Lanka is at a disadvantage to fully utilize global legal techniques and file charges and claim compensation against the polluter.
Following a complaint lodged by the Marine Environmental Protection Authority with the Colombo Harbour Police, the Criminal Investigation Department launched an investigation into the vessel MV Express Pearl that caught fire within the Sri Lankan maritime boundary. Accordingly, statements were recorded from the captain of the ship, chief engineer, as well as the deputy chief engineer for over 12 hours yesterday. What's more, statements of 4 more members of the crew were also recorded by the CID. After ending the preliminary investigations, the CID produced facts before the Colombo Magistrates Court this afternoon. Considering the facts presented by the Deputy Solicitor General representing the CID, the additional magistrate slapped a travel ban to the captain, chief engineer as well as the deputy chief engineer of the vessel. Further notices were also issued for them to appear before court on the 7th of June. The magistrate also gave permission to officials of the Government Analyst Department to inspect the scene of the fire. The Navy commander too was ordered to provide the necessary assistance to this end. In addition, the chairman of the local agent representing the shipping line was ordered by the magistrate to provide the CID with the documents necessary for their investigations. Meanwhile, the stern of the vessel looks to have taken water in. Further, a team of salvors boarded the vessel for the first time today. A team of divers of the Sri Lanka Navy too were deployed to make an assessment on the bilge of the ship. What's more, a team of the National Aquatic Resources Research and Development Agency obtained samples of seawater and soil from the seabed in the vicinity of the vessel. In the meantime, the captain of the ship had refuted allegations of entering the Colombo port limits without informing Sri Lankan authorities of a chemical leak aboard the ship. This was revealed to media by the legal counsel representing the captain of the vessel. The harbour master, however, had a contradicting view on the matter.
ඒ නැවේ මේ කතා වෙන මේ කාන්දු වීම සම්බන්ධව අපිට දැනුවත් කිරීමක් කරලා තිබුණේ නැහැ. ඒකේ දැනුවත් වීම කෙරුණේ නව ඇවිල්ලා කොළඹ ඇන්කරේජ් එකේ තියෙන අතරේ තමයි ඊමේල් පණිවිඩයකින් නැවේ ඒජන්ට් අපිට දැනුම් දුන්නේ මේ නයිට්‍රික් ඇසිඩ් තියෙන කන්ටේනර් එකේ ලීක් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒක නිසා ඒක ඊවර්ක් කරන්න රික්වෙස්ට් එකක් තමයි එවලා තිබුණේ.
However, questions remain over Sri Lanka's ability to recoup the damages caused by the Express Pearl fire.
When we talk about the legal aspects, the legal domain has not been reformed for a while, and we are at a quite a disadvantaged position in this country as we are unable to fully utilize the legal techniques that are being used internationally due to the non-ratification of certain international conventions, and the present legal structure is mainly the Marine Pollution Prevention Act number 35 of 2008, under which there is provision to file criminal charges against the polluter as well as the civil charges against the polluter. Now, in case criminal charges are framed according to the Marine Pollution Prevention Act, there is a fine that may have to be paid in accordance with the order of the court, of course, that vary from 4 million to 15 million. And in the previous case of MV New Diamond, we saw the court imposing a penalty of 12 million rupees. So we don't know at this moment what sort of legal provisions will be used to frame charges. Now, talking about the civil claim, it's better to wait till we find the exact assessments of damages and losses. Thereby, we know then what would be the ultimate compensation package that the country is looking at in relation to the marine environmental damage that has occurred not only to the sea and the marine resources, but also to the shore and the resources connected to the beach.
In the meantime, there was good news for the fishing community today, as State Minister of Multi-Day Fishing Activities Kanchana Wijesekara said that fishing will be allowed elsewhere other than the vicinity of the charged ship.
We'll see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, ratings agency Standard & Poor's has set Sri Lanka's sovereign rating at CCC+ with a stable outlook and has warned of a risk of the country's debt position worsening and added pressure being extended on the rupee. While forecasting slight growth this year, the agency adds that the rating could be raised if external buffers are significantly boosted or if economic recovery is much stronger than expected in the next 2 years.
Ratings agency Standard & Poor's has affirmed Sri Lanka's sovereign rating at CCC+ with a stable outlook, while citing loose policies and a worsened debt position due to the government's attempts to boost growth, which they say has pressured the exchange rate. The report says that while domestic interest rates have been maintained at low levels through central bank liquidity injections, the exchange rate could come under further pressure. It also warns that as a result, the government could face a budget deficit of 10.2% for 2021. It also warns that a further downgrade could come if foreign reserves decline more than forecast, as well as if the government is unable to boost reserves through an issue of Sri Lanka development bonds. It also adds that Sri Lanka's external financing risks remain acute as the country's high debt burden and large fiscal deficits weigh on investor confidence. Further, the report says that while the economy is likely to expand modestly this year, uncertainty over the evolution of the COVID-19 pandemic threatens recovery. It added that its stable outlook reflects a view that the government has access to official creditors but remains dependent on favorable business, financial and economic conditions to boost foreign reserves. It also says that the rating could be raised if external buffers are significantly boosted or if economic recovery is much stronger than expected for the next 2 years. In bad news for the tourism sector, the report also forecasts that the new deadly wave of infection sweeping across the region will likely keep borders closed for the rest of the year, while vaccine rollouts have been hampered by supply issues. It also adds that policies are expected to remain expansionary as the government maintains a strong parliamentary majority.
Headline inflation has increased to 4.5% in May 2021 from 3.9% in April. This was driven by monthly increases of prices of items in both food and non-food categories. The central bank says that food inflation year-on-year increased to 9.9% in May 2021 from 9% in April, while the non-food inflation year-on-year increased to 2.2% in May from 1.8% in April. The Colombo Consumer Price Index, measured on an annual average basis, remained unchanged at 3.9% in May. Monthly change of CCPI recorded at 1.05% in May 2021 due to price increases observed in items of both food and non-food categories. Moreover, monthly changes of food and non-food categories recorded at 0.69% and 0.36% respectively. Accordingly, within the food category, prices of fresh fish, coconut oil and rice increased, whereas prices of fresh fruits and vegetables recorded decreases. Meanwhile, prices of items in the non-food category recorded an increase due to price increases observed in the health and housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels subcategories. The core inflation year-on-year, which reflects the underlying inflation in the economy, increased to 3.2% in May 2021 from 3% in April. Meanwhile, annual average core inflation remained unchanged at 3% in May for the fourth consecutive month. Now taking a look at the Colombo Bourse, the all-share price index gained 46.68 points to end at 7,449.12 today, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 3,006.85, following a surge of 28.04 points. The market turnover for the day was 2.9 billion rupees. Here's Dimantha Matthew with your daily report on market performance.
Today we saw the index rise again for the fifth consecutive day, ending in the green territory. So the ASPI now has reached the 7,450 mark. So with this, we are seeing a lot of confidence rebuilding in the minds of the investors. However, at the start of the day, with the continuous uptrend, we saw a bit of volatility and profit taking with ups and downs during the first hour of trading. However, after that, we saw a steady upward trend as buying interest continuously improved in the market. Today, we saw the banking and diversified financial sector gaining in a significant matter in terms of turnover. This is in addition to the continuous buying interest coming into the strong material sector and capital goods sector, which have extremely good earnings. So with this, we are seeing turnover levels again cross the 2 billion mark to 2.9 billion.
The rupee, meanwhile, remained unchanged at 202.88 cents against the US dollar today after ending at the same level yesterday. Let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Sri Lanka's legendary left-arm spinner Rangana Herath is tipped to become Bangladesh's spin bowling coach, replacing Daniel Vittori. Cricket Operation Chairman of the Bangladesh Cricket Board, Akram Khan, was quoted by a sports media outlet saying that the BCB will be taking the final call soon. Akram has, however, said that Herath certainly is a front-runner for the post. Herath, meanwhile, has also confirmed that he is having discussions with BCB over the vacant post. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.